Welcome to Guiding Tides. My name is Christian Smith. I'm here with Jess Kelly, Mahesh Balan, Jeff Jason. This is our first official episode. I just want to dive a little bit into how this kind of formed, from my perspective at least. So through my own trials and tribulations, trying to become a character in other people's stories, so much so that I failed to become the main character in my own story. I lost myself. I had a mental breakdown, but it was the best thing that could have happened to me because I got to meet a lot of people that have got me into the position that I am today. I've got to learn a lot of great things. And the idea of bringing this podcast to the light is to show everybody else what I've seen. You don't have to have the breakdown and go into some sort of facility or confide in somebody else. I hope this reaches somebody who's, I don't want to say too afraid, but isn't at that step of their life where they're ready to enter into some form of treatment. So with this band that we've teamed together, everybody has their own experiences. We have professionals in the building. We have real life professionals, I guess we'll call you and I. But each one of us, we have our own story. And from listening to everybody, having extensive conversations, we all have a seat at this table. So without further ado, I'd like to pass it off to the team, let them do their introductions, and Mahesh will walk us through what our first episode's going to be on.
Yeah, so hey everybody, Mahesh Balan here. Quick background on me. I'm the old man at the table.
Thank God.
My background is that I've been working with teenagers and families addressing emotional issues for well over 30 years. Different capacities, worked with the courts, worked with the schools. I'm currently a school adjustment counselor at a high school in the South Shore. I recently got my license to start my own therapy practice. So different systems and different organizations I've worked with to constantly work with kids and their families.
I'm Jeff Jason. I guess I make up part of the professional side of this project. When Christian introduced this idea to me, this vision he had, I had recently thought to myself, I should do a podcast because I noticed there was a lot of material coming out, in view of me on TikTok and Instagram Reels and whatnot that just seemed to lack authenticity. It just seemed like people were trying to be funny or people were trying to appear as influencers or I don't know. I'm not
trying to monetize on this.
Yeah, I'm not trying to pretend like I know what people are doing, but it lacked depth. And yeah. I decided that I'd love an opportunity to do something like this. Ultimately because, wouldn't it be cool if it got to some sort of point where popularity where I had the reach to invite somebody that I just find fascinating to come on and talk to and get into their brain and see why they think the way they do. When you told me everything else, how could I say no? How could to reach the demographic and the audience that we want to try and reach on the mission, community engagement, but like potentially at a global level. What? Like, how could I not want to do something like this? And, on the professional side, for the last 8 years, I've worked with a very specific demographic, people struggling with substance use disorder and co-occurring mental health disorders, whether it be at the sober housing level where, I chose to live and recover myself, about 10 years ago, or living in an apartment, with full custody of my 1-year-old son, working full time and relying on childcare in my third year of sobriety. I'm not sure. But working at a professional level with people that arguably are having the worst day of their life, that are just at a point where they're online looking for answers. They're seeing 800 numbers and they're at a point where they're willing to pick up the phone and dial, that 10,000 pound telephone, picking it up and actually speaking into existence that you're in a bad place, or maybe you're someone's loved one and you're trying to find answers for your spouse or for a sibling or whoever. And then you get me on the phone, and for whatever reason, I've always been in this position where that's the work I want to be doing. That's where I feel the God that drives me and the power that drives me, and has been driving me in my life. It's where I'm supposed to be, and I happen to be told I'm incredibly skilled, and you know, I have qualities that people are able to connect with me, and people are able to listen to me, and people are able to open up to me in that terrible time that they're experiencing. And you know, on a professional standpoint, I've always tried to align myself with organizations and treatment facilities that do good work clinically and societally. You know, this is a huge problem in our society, that with so much more attention and, you know, destigmatification, if that's a word, the problem has seemingly grown. It hasn't shrunk. You know, there's more people fighting it, and it doesn't seem to really be showing any serious signs of wavering. So to be able to be here and pour into an effort such as this, you know, why wouldn't I, you know? So that's why I'm here. You know, in addition to who I am, I'm a father. I have 3 children. My daughter is 9 months old, and then I have 2 sons, 6 and 5. I am, you know, a partner and a fiance in a very high functioning relationship. You know, 3 kids, a home to take care of. We got chickens. We got, you know,
You got it all, brother.
yeah, we got it all.
Yeah.
And I'm at a
Beautiful
pretty cool
chaos.
place. Yeah, I'm at a pretty cool place where I'm in between professional projects, and I just kind of have this downtime to be a family man, to be a man in my community of Pembroke, where I was born and raised, and left for about 20 years and lived in Dorchester, Quincy, Weymouth. You know, slowly making my way back down the South Shore to inevitably end up back in my hometown, and putting my kids through the same school system, and, you know, trying to make my way.
Jeff, what I love that you bring to the table is what you were just explaining there, how, you know, you were giving yourself the accolades of you're really good at what you do. And I think, you know, you coming to a public setting like this and speaking about that, like, I feel like a lot of people don't understand that there's help out there. There's these centers. I didn't know, you know, my wife started doing homework because I was completely, to tie into our lesson today, in a fawn state, right? And I'm like, I don't know what to do. I'm Googling, and I'm like, fuck this. It's too hard. I can't, whatever. It's fine. I can just
It's
push it down.
10,000 pounds.
10,000, right. So but for you now to step onto this platform with all these people watching and everybody sharing with their friends, people are going to learn that there's facilities that's not necessarily, you know, the conventional mental hospital.
Yeah.
That turns people off. Like, such a beautiful thing. And I'm sure people will have questions that will come in, and
Nobody's banging into the windows. Nobody's flinging anything at you.
Sure.
You know, it's
Just
you know,
real people.
It's
just
normal
real
people, high
facing,
functioning.
Yeah.
facing real problems that we're told or have been told generationally to just shut up and deal with, to just stuff it down. The whole, the old, you know, being a man and having to, you know, carry the weight or whatever, you know, like, but women have it just as bad now in society. Women are expected to provide half or even more of the household income.
Carry all the mental load.
And take care of the children and cook us dinner and, you know,
Work full time.
I don't envy you. You know, I don't envy you.
It's not easy.
No. So who are you, and why are you here doing this, and what made you want to do this?
I don't know how I'm going to follow that up. He did so good.
We're all doing it. Everyone's doing really good.
Take what you did and make it look like light work.
Well, I'm Jessica. I'm Jessica Kelly. I'm from Stoughton. Born and raised, still here after 35 years. So I don't think we're leaving anytime soon. My husband would love to be buried here, actually, like right in this garage. He would love that.
That's awesome.
But why am I here? I'm here because I think I offer a good knowledge on what it's like to be like a woman and carry all the loads that women carry. And going through postpartum, I don't think I ever thought I would overcome the amount of fear and anxiety and depression that I had in that moment in time. I ignored my postpartum for 3.5 years, which led me to going to the doctors and having them put me on medication. Try this, try that. This will work. This will fix it. And nothing seemed to help. And then getting on the wrong medication, which caused me to go into a psychosis. And then my body kind of gave out on me during that time. And I couldn't hide it anymore. So I got to a point where I needed help. I needed to really figure it out. I begged my sister to even come to the doctors with me because I needed somebody to hold me accountable, because I couldn't even hold myself accountable at that time. So yeah, having that mental breakdown in May of 2024 at work that was crazy. I went to the doctors. I discussed a couple of options, like what would be best for me. I entered a center, and it was a wellness center for mental health. And I think they did substance abuse as well.
Was it outpatient or inpatient?
It was outpatient. So I went.
So you got to live at home still?
Yep, I lived at home. I got to take care. Well, for the first couple of weeks, my mom had my daughter because I was just that down and out. That was like one of the hardest things to have to go through. But yeah, no, I went every day from 9 to 3. They also offered like evening classes too. But that's just what worked for me at that moment in time. It was that drastic that I needed that commitment. And that was the first time I held myself accountable. But yeah, so it was outpatient. I went in every single day. That's where I met Christian. And on one of our many walks around the buildings, we discussed, I mentioned a podcast, and I was just like, how fucking awesome would it be to be able to just open up a platform and be able to discuss what we go through as normal people, you know, as a mom, as a dad, as a coworker, as a friend, as a wife, a husband, whatever it may be. But at that moment in time, it seemed just like a dream, like one of these things that, you know, pops into your head and you're like, oh, this sounds cool. I want to do something like that. But now, you know, thankfully Christian has the right channels of people and he knows you guys. And I'm so honored to be at this table with everybody here.
So we're going to be talking about fight or flight. Some people are privy to this, but just to start from the beginning, you know, these are just terms used as to how we deal with our problems. So fight is when we actually confront our problems and how we start implementing strategies of how to get to our final goal. You got to have a goal as to where you want to get to. If you can have that goal, and getting to that goal is a process in itself, and I'll get to that. But if you can have that goal of, I want to become sober, I want to be able to express myself without being angry or violent. Okay, that's your goal. Fine. So let's take it backwards from the goal to define how do we get there? What are the strategies that we have to implement to get there?
What if my goal is I want to inflict damage? I want to inflict pain on this person that's creating this response in me.
So the question would be the why. What is that going to get you? So there's the release of immediate rage. Sure, that's understood.
I equate it to safety, I think, in my instincts in the moment.
Beautiful. So you want to feel safe from what?
Criticism, attack, some sort of attack.
So when someone criticizes you or talks to you about, even in the most loving way, right? We look at the people that impact us, they're the closest ones to us. And that's why they impact us the most, right? If it's some guy that I run to at Starbucks that bumps into me, right? I could throw down and get into a fight, but really, I got to go to the bat right away instead of shrugging and saying, oh, you all right, bro? Because I'm not confronted or put into fear by someone accidentally bumping into me. Some other people would lose their minds and throw it down right away.
Or maybe it's, a compliment or a comment about the hat you're wearing. If it came from my wife, I'd say, thank you, honey. If it came from some stranger at a gas station, I'd say, what are you looking at me for? What?
Sure.
What'd you just say to me, pal? And it's like, why do I assign that type of reaction to such an insignificant person in my life?
And that's where the work is done, is ask yourself, why? Why did that trigger me? Why did that cause me to feel X, Y, and Z? Right? So that, again, is a process in itself. And for some people, it takes years. Okay? Because
It took me years.
Nothing happens by accident.
No. I know, all I was saying that it took me years to realize what place that I was at. So I understand that.
Do you mean place as far as where you fit in fight flight, like in that? Is that what we're talking about, or just in general?
I think just in general, it took me a long time to figure out that I was in a place where I shouldn't have been, because of myself.
Absolutely. So that journey of looking at how did I get here, there's a starting point.
Yeah.
And for a lot of us, it ties back to our adolescence. It ties back to our formative years of how we developed our personalities, what contributed to creating this image we have of ourselves, or who we decided to become.
Yep.
Right? So along that route, you've got your coping strategies that work, that don't work. And what do we stick with? We stick with the ones that work.
Yep.
Or the ones that work for that time period.
But they're detrimental to us.
Exactly. But if you do something often enough, or if you say something often enough, you can say a lie on a regular basis, right? But that lie, if you say it enough,
it becomes your truth.
Well, I mean, that ties into something I just got into in the last year, is the art of manifestation. Wow. It's something I dove into with a book. I'd shared it with actually both Jess and Jeff. It's called Project 369. Life altering, for sure. It teaches you how to break things up, how to set your goals, set your intentions, the things to say, because you're right. If you keep saying things enough, you're going to believe it.
Right.
And it's going to start, you're speaking it into existence, so to say.
Yep. You're giving it life.
Unfortunately, it doesn't work. We can say I'm a millionaire. There's steps, there's procedures. You got to fucking move and do things to make that happen. But
I think I need to get that book. I think it's time.
I recommend it to everybody. I'm telling you, Mahesh, you knew me when I was young. If I ever said anything about manifestations or the universe or anything like that, Jesus Christ, I would have laughed. But in a dark place, I found it. And I found it just by chance, similar to this podcast, where it kind of kept coming up to my attention, getting brought up by different people. And I'm like, all right, I'm listening. The book kept popping up everywhere. And I'm like, fuck it, I just bought it on a whim. Wow. It sat on my nightstand for probably a month. And then I finally picked it up and I'm like, oh, interesting. It's more a workbook than anything. So then I learned to speak more positively, how to reframe things. I do that often with people I text with. I think we've had conversations like this. If somebody says, I think I can be better. I hope I can. Fuck that.
Guilty.
Affirm it. I'm going to do this. You know what I mean? And you might not, but you put that into your head, you're going to line yourself up for a better success rate, in my opinion. And look, it's been proven out. If I tell myself I'm going to have a panic attack, I'm going to have a panic attack.
Yep.
If I tell myself I'm going to be the energy in the room, I'm going to be the energy in the room.
Yep.
That's why I like integration therapy so much. It's because when you develop the self-awareness enough to say, I'm depressed right now, I'm in a depressive state, you can apply action to any circumstance, any situation you're in. You can apply intention and action and literally act your way out of being depressed. Or I can, at least, I can, sitting down.
I'm interested in that. Tell me more about that.
So don't come for me in the comment section, but my understanding of integration therapy is you're integrating something into the classical engagement of individual therapy or private therapy. And what I integrate in is a series of prompted journaling where, if I'm depressed, chances are there's something that's not going the way I want it to go in my life. So that's typically what I try and draw out of me is what's not going my way, what's not ideal right now. And from that, I start to, list out some unfortunate circumstances that I've acted my way into. I've made decisions based on me that placed me in a position to, be in some sort of conflict or some sort of pain. So identifying it and then bringing into an actual engagement with a therapist, virtually. For me, I've been doing virtual therapy.
As have I.
I have something to talk about, something intentional to bring into that session, and we talk about this problem. And then immediately following the session, I don't get up from my laptop. I don't, go about my business. I stay with my journal, and I develop 2 or 3 short-term goals, some sort of short-term action list of tangible things I can do to reach the ultimate goal of not being in this debt or conflict with my spouse or, professional situation, and getting over here doesn't seem like this big immovable mountain or unobtainable goal when I approach it that way.
You know what I love about that, Jeff? What I heard, like keyword, what I heard and all that was accountability.
And working through your problems.
Correct. I had heard, I'm never on this podcast going to say something and coin it as my own. I might give you a little smirk if it's something I came up with on the fly, and that's how you know. But
a little smirk and a wink.
And I really don't know how to cite, because I've watched so many videos, read so many articles, got into so many books. But somebody had said, and it really stuck with me, was the power lies in the direction you cast your finger.
Yes.
Yep.
You think about that. I mean, that could be applied to so many things. When you're a kid, I couldn't get my homework done because my parents were fighting. Yes, that's a little more out of your control, but let's be real. I mean, if you're out playing and bullshit, you could have got it done.
Yep.
I'm not losing weight because fucking Mahesh keeps bringing me out to awesome restaurants. No, they got a healthy menu. You know what I mean? So when you hold yourself accountable.
Ordered a salad, pal.
Could have, right? But I didn't. I didn't hold myself accountable. When you take it and you're, like you said, putting it on a notebook that's tangible now, and you're holding yourself accountable.
Holding yourself accountable is very hard.
It is. It sucks. And we live in a world where we really don't have to. It's such a soft place. I mean, in some regards, that's nice, but there's not much accountability held, from my perspective, at least. And I hold myself accountable to a fault. I mean, I've been in court and I've waived, having an attorney a couple times, and, I'm like, yes, I did this, or like I'm prepared to really just lay it out. And somebody in my corner is like, are you stupid? Are you sure you want to do that? And I'm like, I did it though. Idea. They're like, maybe you don't do that,
Yep.
I did struggle with accountability sometimes, but from a mental health perspective, doing that, I think that's a key to opening up so much.
It is a key.
I think that what we struggle with on an individual level is the barriers that prevent us from holding ourselves accountable are feeling rage, not feeling validated, not feeling heard. And that gets us in this spiral of like, yeah, but you're not listening to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I'm caught in that, and I want to be heard. And fine, I'll take accountability, but hear me out first.
Sure.
There's always a but.
It's
right?
got
always a but, right? There's always, but
right.
As we do that, we're buying ourselves time. It's procrastinating.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes a lot of strength.
I am the queen of procrastination.
Right? It takes a lot of strength to take it on the chin and take that hit of like, yeah, but you're still an alcoholic. Or, yeah, you're still abusive to your spouse. Yeah, you're still not going to work. And you're making excuses. You're constantly making excuses because you want to be heard. If you jump to the mindset of what happens after I'm heard? You had your piece. You said your piece. Now, when are you going to put action into play? So how do you cross that bridge of having the self-confidence when you don't have any? You don't believe in yourself. How do you jump to action? Now, that's where workbooks, like you were mentioning, that book you mentioned, Project, what is it? 369?
Project 369.
Okay. So if you look at that as a template, use templates that already exist, but
You have to do something.
you have to have faith
Bingo.
that you can make progress, or you're going to continue to wallow in your misery. And I use that word very carefully because you will be alone, wallowing, splashing around in your misery. And you're going to be wallowing, thrashing louder and louder. Why? Because you want to be seen, you want to be heard. People will bypass you at some point.
I have a biased opinion on the other side of that. Yes, 100% that's going to happen. I would like to believe everybody at some point is going to hit the point where they're sick and tired of being sick and tired, right? Like that cliche.
Yep.
Right.
And I'm biased to it because I hit that point of that splashing around. I think I had used last time we met, I was out waving in the ocean and I felt as though my people were on a boat, driving by, floating by, and they're like, oh, he's waving to us. Hi. And I'm like, no help, send me a rope. I don't know.
No one's
Well, that's like I said, my house was on fire and nobody could come get me.
That's it. But the biggest thing is no one's coming to fucking save you. You can go on 100 podcasts right now. Again, I'm not coining shit. I'm regurgitating information, but I'm regurgitating it because it was impactful. No one's coming to save you.
No.
For me, I only get to that jumping off place where I'm ready to really take action. Yes, when I'm in enough pain, but I only find myself in enough pain when I've found myself completely exposed. I'm wide open. I'm in trouble. I'm on the front page of the Sunday Globe, my mugshot with 8 others. It's airing on my mother's last birthday on this earth, before she passed. I got to do something, and from that place, I got a psych eval and was honest with some providers for the first time in my adult life. And, got told some very, in the moment, unfortunate things to hear, because I was hoping that, my mental health, having a breakdown or an episode could help get me out of trouble somehow. And when, I shared my psych eval with my lawyer, he said, yeah, we can't let the prosecution get a hold of this. This all says you'll reoffend. This all says jail time would be good for you. This all says like people like you don't learn their lessons. Talk about hopeless. Talk about just
being down.
I was nailed to the cross, by being honest, by being myself, and the diagnosis was a personality disorder. I'm not a psychopath or, anything dangerous. And from that place, I get real willing to take action, So earlier talking about being self-aware that I'm depressed, what a privilege, what a privileged state to have worked myself into, I guess, to where, I can even... because for years of my adult life, no idea. I had no clue, self-awareness. I couldn't even look in a mirror, let alone look into my thoughts, look into my psyche. Yikes. No, thank you. The more I spoke with you, Christian, and the more you started to reveal kind of how you thought about things and looked at things, it was just impossible to not see this like it factor in you, and in describing you to people, for a month or so now, it's like, I don't know what it is, but he has it, he's got it.
He's got the confidence. He has the
character, integrity,
the integrity, everything,
it's not
right.
fake.
But that's a journey that Christian's gone through. Yeah. And just tying it back to Jessica, what you were saying earlier.
Talk about how you guys know each other. That's some wild,
So getting back to what Jessica was saying, that in the beginning, when you were struggling, you were in a passive role.
Passive role, okay.
Right? And that, getting back to our discussion of fight or flight, there's a process to get to the fight.
Yeah.
And you went through these stages where you hit the freeze and the fawn. And I just want to touch upon that really quickly and tie it back into
Sure.
what you were experiencing.
Sure.
So when we say freeze, we're talking about an induced state of immobility or paralysis. Mm-hmm. I'm experiencing this, and I'm overwhelmed. I don't know where to turn, how to breathe, what to think. what to do.
I wasn't
Will
sleeping.
you do the bears, Christian? The bear one? There's a bear coming at me. The way you explain fight, flight, freeze, fawn. One of them was like, the bear's going to fuck me. I'm going to fuck the bear or something. You remember what I'm talking about?
No bears were harmed in the making of this podcast.
Are we getting back to that friend calling you with that question?
You just blew my fucking mind.
Was that what you were going to say?
I literally was going to cover that, and I just had something pop into my
We
head.
looked at each other too.
Telepathic. Whatever the hell the word's called.
Yeah,
Telepathic.
let me
Jeez, we can cut that out. That was fucking weird.
let me just get back to this. So, Jessica, a key point that you touched upon were the stages you went through to finally get to the stage where you fought.
Yeah.
And you were actively seeking attention to address your problems.
Because I finally talked about it.
Right. So that was an active decision,
Yeah.
right? You activated that ability to say, I got to do something about this,
Yes.
right? But before you got to that stage, tying it back to our conversation of fight or flight, you went through a period of freeze when you were experiencing the postpartum depression, when you were experiencing that feeling of being overwhelmed. So we define freeze as the state of immobility and paralysis. It's hard to breathe. It's hard to just exist.
I couldn't exist. I was legit just breathing, and that was it. Like, I wasn't eating. I lost like 32 pounds. It was crazy.
From there, you went to either not avoiding, but
No, I was definitely avoiding.
Yeah.
I was avoiding the
I don't wanna
reality.
judge too much, you know. Like I don't
Oh,
want
no,
to come off
don't-
as judgment.
No judgment at all. But yeah, I was avoiding everything. I was avoiding anything that had to do with me.
Yep,
I could function when I was taking care of my daughter because I knew that that was what I had to do.
absolutely.
And it's kind of like what drove me, you know?
Throw yourself into addressing other issues.
Yep. Well, I had to fix everybody else's issues. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to make sure that I could take care of this person, take care of this. I was a manager at work at that time. I wanted to fix every issue that there was possible, but I couldn't.
Right.
What did I say at the beginning of this? Do you remember?
No.
And I had kind of prefaced in before we began. So that thought that I had came to of we try to insert ourselves into other people's stories to be a big role.
Yeah.
So much so that we don't become the main character of our own.
Yeah.
So do you mind if I jump in on one of these 4 topics?
Go ahead.
Being the, it would be, I guess, the feeling of being chased by a bear. What would that be, Mahesh? That's flight, right?
So it's that anxiety that's right behind you, breathing on you.
So I've always understood that concept, but not the way that I learned it. Excuse me, I didn't understand it until I fully understood it. So I'm going to share just a little bit, some family history, and I touched on it in the clips of an unfortunate passing. One of my older brother's wife, she committed suicide, and it was an absolute rock, like just rocked everybody. She had texted me the day before, and I don't know which category I fell into, but I kind of froze up, so I guess freeze. And unfortunately, the next day it happened. Now, I don't think that me not answering played a part in that at this point. Originally, I did.
But it was very detrimental to you.
For sure. And just seeing what it did to my older brother and his kids, Jesus Christ, it's been horrible. I internalized a lot. At that point, I was suicidal myself. Now, you would think that if you see somebody in a casket that had a successful suicide, it would turn you off to the idea. For me, it didn't. I started to romanticize with the idea. It made it more normal. I said, she did it, I can do it. I'm strong enough, I can do that shit too. And I'm like, uh-oh, these are not good fucking thoughts to have. I have 2 beautiful children, two daughters, a beautiful wife, and I'm a product of losing a parent. You know what I mean? I could never put my kids in that. As much as I want to, I can't fucking give up. Now, my wife went down to the Cape House and I was alone. I don't do well alone. I I think I told you at one point, I either take a bath and get fucking takeout, or
Yep.
for some of the people watching, we'll keep the stories to a minimum.
Perseverate and ruminate on
Jesus
really dark shit.
Christ.
Yep.
Yeah, that's for sure. 0 to 100.
All your
quickly.
enemies show up to the party.
100%. All the demons show up, and now I know how to fight them. But so this one night in particular that I want to discuss because it ties into the topic.
Yeah.
I was sitting at home and I did just that. I could have gone out. A few of my buddies going to the bar, and I'm like, all right, great. A few cocktails, come home. I don't have to wake up early with the kids. And I'm like, you know what? No, I'm gonna stay home, get takeout. So I did just that, and I started listening to music, and I started going down this dark path, dark, and I almost liked it.
Yes.
I wasn't advertising it to anybody. It wasn't for to get attention. I was just like, okay, I kind of like how this hurts right now. I deserve this. I'm very punitive.
Yes.
So I kept going further down till I got to the point. I'm like, oh shit, I can't get out. I'm stuck in the upside down right now.
Yep.
And I had a plan to end my life. I had letters written. It was done. It got heavy. And I thought about how I felt growing up without a parent. I went up and I looked at my mother's picture and I was like, fuck, I can't do this. I just felt her energy telling me not to do it. I went into my children's rooms, who quite literally saved my damn life. And I looked in their rooms and I was like, no, I'm a girl dad, fucking through and through. I gotta be here to get them through this crazy ass world.
Yep.
So I'm like, something told me to get in my truck. So I get in my truck, kind of anxious, and I just wanted to get down towards my children, down the Cape House. And as I'm driving, it got heavier and heavier. And it was like two voices in my head almost. I wasn't having hallucinations, but it was like my personality split. And it was like, do it. You're being a bitch, just do it. You deserve it. Your kids will be fine. They'll be better off without you. Your wife will find new love. You're not an impactful person, just real nasty shit. And then I'm like, no, but hey, I love my wife. I love my kids. I am impactful. I need to be here.
That's you, though. That
Yes.
is you.
100%.
Yeah.
That's me when I'm saying it.
Right. And, so I'm going through it and I had the means within reach to do exactly what I wanted to do. And I just kept telling myself, drive, just keep going, keep going, keep going. And by the time I got on 95 heading south, so I drive a big jacked up truck. They're not meant to go fast, especially with big mud tires. Once I got on 95, I don't think my speedometer went under 3 digits. I felt as though I had to get there, just get down to my pot of gold at the other end of the rainbow. You know what I mean? That was my wife and my children.
That was your end goal.
100%. I had to get there because I felt so unsafe. I'm like, shit, in this sense, I'm going to hurt myself or worse. I need to just get there and I'll be fine. That's all I could think of. So I was coming down past like Hingham area and I was probably closing in like 115. Whole thing's like shaking. I'm like, I'm gonna get pulled over. And I started getting really anxious. A lot of people don't know about me. I have horrible generalized anxiety. I have terrible social anxiety, which for a lot of people that know me, you see me in a public setting.
GAD.
Yeah.
GAD,
right.
yep.
The old
Generalized anxiety disorder.
GAD.
Right. So, but for people who know me, I go out, I put myself in certain, areas.
You put on different masks.
I do, and I put them on well. I mean, there was a night in particular, you might remember, I did a handstand on a bar and I went over the other side. And some people loved it, some people hated it. Nobody knew why I was doing it. I needed to go into this version of myself. Right. So anyways, back to driving.
Won't catch me doing no handstands.
Me neither.
No, getting a little too old for that stuff. But I'm driving, I get by Hingham, and all of a sudden I felt this damn force behind me, like something was chasing me, like this evil entity. And I'm not into stuff like that. Like I'm not gonna start talking about ghosts and shit.
I'm not either, but I do feel like I was spiritually attacked not too long ago.
But that's
Story for another
I felt
time.
like something was coming, and I was just eyes forward. I'm like, I got to get to my kids. I got to get to my kids. If I don't get to my kids, this is going to grab me and I'm going to end my life tonight. So I stopped right before the Bourne Bridge and I got out. I walked up the bridge, yeah. And I had this tear again of just do it. All the people that would be happy I was gone, the people that would be better off, just reel again.
But is that what you tell? That's what you told yourself?
Of course, the
okay.
pure
Because you don't know
mindset.
if they do.
And I don't believe that now to be true.
Okay, good.
Not entirely, because we're still a work in progress.
Yes.
But I looked at the other side of the bridge and I'm like, my babies are over there. Just get there. So I jump back in, still having a raging panic attack. I'm putting on System of a Down. I'm fucking screaming. Like, I'm like trying to get into that, like,
Get the energy out.
hardcore mode, like just to fight through it. Then I put on John Denver Country Roads. Like, I switched that quick to like, all right, maybe I need to relax and kind of calm down. And then I put on guided meditation. Like, I went through every goddamn cycle.
Wow.
And then finally, I get close to the Cape House, and my truck's loud. So when I pulled down the street, cut the engine, I parked right in front. It was probably about 3:34 in the morning. And the room my children sleep in when we go down there, it's right there, right out front. So I didn't want them to wake up because then that's just a whole mess. And I didn't want to explain myself too much as to why I was there.
Right.
But just being in the vicinity of where my children and wife were, it felt like there was like this
Calmness,
this dome of positive energy, and I was safe in there.
Sanctuary.
Thank you. And that, whatever that mess was that was chasing me,
Had no power.
Yep.
no power. But that was the first time, like, fight or flight, I was like, holy shit, this is a horrifying feeling.
Yes.
But what I learned out of that, because I want to, as we go through these things, I want to explain from a real standpoint of kind of how to combat this stuff, right?
Yes.
And what I learned, and Mahesh as a professional here, like, you can tap in to what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I learned boundaries, expectations, communication is kind of key for that, for that aspect of it, from my opinion. Again, I'm not a professional, I'm just speaking from my own. But
You created a system.
Correct.
It's your system that you work in, yeah.
I know if I'm struggling, I'm not going to add alcohol to the mix. I know if...
It'll just be a bad
Of course,
thing.
and I think everybody knows it. Nobody wants to admit it. But, let's say I'm kind of in a bad way, which we're humans. It happens, especially at this healing chapter of my life. Every day is going to look kind of fucking ugly until it gets better. We're going through the storm. You're going to get wet.
Yeah.
So if I'm kind of in a weird way, I'm maybe not going to put myself in a position where I'm home alone. You know what I mean? Or I'm away from my kids.
Yep, you'll just make sure that you're with them.
And that's just it. Look, there's a gravitational pull there. I can't tell you for the last 4 consecutive years, minus the last 2, so not consecutive, because of my mental health journey, I do a golf trip down the Cape with my buddies. And it's a 20 of us great time, and it becomes a really great time. But my wife goes down to her parents' house. I pay a premium for a hotel room on this golf trip, peak season in the Cape. But at the end of every damn night,
You're back home with your kids.
I come knock on the door quietly, text my wife, hey. And she might attribute it to the fact that I love them. But for me, it's because I need them. So understanding that the wife, the kids, they're a huge component to battling that aspect of these 4 quadrants of this conversation. I keep that on the front of my mind. I keep the boundaries up.
So you identified the things that would motivate you to stay alive. But getting back to when you were feeling that you were suicidal and getting back to the point where you created a plan, let me ask you something. Did you feel a rush out of that? There's like an adrenaline rush.
So there was initially, and then I'm a people pleaser by nature, and I felt that I'd be doing a service to people if I did that. And look, I won't get too far into it to not trigger anybody, but the way in which I was going to do it was going to be offshore. I wouldn't have been recovered. I didn't want to burden anybody with that, But yeah, it definitely was a rush for sure.
So that rush that you created by putting effort into that negative energy, it was filling a void.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was in that void and I got to qualify this for the viewers, and this is from my experience of talking to people that have felt the same thing. The commonality is that you want to fill that void, and the most immediate action is to end it. So the attitude is that this bear that's chasing me, you're not going to get me.
Right.
I'm going to get me. I'm in control.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this my way, and everyone's going to know that I was in control in this final moment of my life.
You can't kill me, I'll kill me.
You're right.
Right.
You're not doing this to me.
Yeah.
I'm doing this to me. I'm taking control over all the travesties and the ugliness of my life. That's not going to control me. I'm going to end that by ending me. And that mindset is that,
Sure.
I'm diving into this and no one's stopping me. I won't let anyone stop me. I'm putting my foot down. It's a backward way of, instead of addressing these issues and identifying the systems or the supports they have in place to allow you to be helped. There's a mindset of, no, I'm alone and I'm going to handle this myself because I'm a big boy and I can take care of this myself, but I'm going to take care of it this way. I'm deciding. I'm in control of this decision. And it's dark, right? But luckily, you have this beautiful family that you want to fight for and fight to keep. And for your story, that helped you get through that haze.
It did, and coupled with a reframed mindset.
Yep.
And I worked with a therapist on this, and I thought it was beautiful because he said, "Look, I don't know that you want to kill yourself." Now I'm like, "Fuck you! Like, what's that supposed to mean? How do you know?" But that's me. It's bullheaded me. That's the ego that I'm constantly like, "I calm down." He said, "I think rather you want to kill a version of yourself." Ooh, when he said that, I was like, he hit me right between the eyes. I was like, yeah. So look, I kind of built that version of myself and said, all right, that's you right there, and then just annihilated him.
How many times during this period of your life did you watch the movie Fight Club? Yeah, I know you. I know you because you are me, and I am you.
That's pretty funny. So that's my take on that aspect. I didn't mean to completely steal the show with that, and I'd be curious if anybody else had an opinion on that. But all of these resonate with everybody, whether you know them or not. And I think that's one of the biggest things is bringing this to the light. Look, we're all normal people despite our jobs, whether it's professionally in the industry or not. Normal people just discussing this and getting this out there is huge. Absolutely huge. I just want to tie one more thing, and then hopefully that'll kind of open up flow of conversation here.
Sure, yeah.
Again, I don't really know. I'll let you decipher what I'm saying and apply it to which category here. But with everything going on with my sister-in-law when she passed, I was helping my older brother out where I could because rightfully so, Jesus Christ, he was facing one of the ultimates, losing your partner. Yep. Next to children, I couldn't imagine that, right? Yeah. And I remember I wasn't sleeping. I was drinking far too much. My wife had to go to her sister's wedding, and that was in another state. So now my safety net was gone, and that was fucking scary for me.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
I wouldn't burden anybody because at the time I didn't have friends like I do now. All my boys love them dearly, but like if I call them, they'd either jokingly be like, "Yeah, do it, pussy," or they,
Right.
It's just
not in their nature.
It's that alpha male bravado bullshit, But they're not going to get real with me. But I went to a bank, and this is where I cracked. I went into a bank, and I went to pull money out, so I'm signing the withdrawal slip, and all of a sudden my right hand started shaking. I'm like, oh shit. Now I'm a proud person, so I'm like, I don't want them to think something's wrong with me.
Yeah.
And because I have tattoos, I assume people will pass judgment that I'm on drugs or something like that.
Yeah.
It's just that weird mindset with me. My left hand started shaking. And my right knee, left knee, and I'm like, oh shit. And they're looking at me, and I'm just convulsing. And then I dropped to my knees.
Wow.
And they were like, do you need an ambulance? I'm like, no, I'm good. I get up, I grab the cash, I run out the door, and I call my father. And I'm like, Dad, something's wrong. And he started talking about something to do with funerals and funeral homes. That was his profession. So it was the last damn thing I wanted to talk about at that moment. I respect and value, what he wants to talk about, but it wasn't the right time. So I started screaming. I was like, I think I'm fucking dying. I'm like, I need your help. Tell me I'm okay. I just need a validation,
Yep.
And I kind of kicked back. I looked in the mirror and I was like, wife's not here. Kids aren't here. Dad isn't helpful in the moment. Back to that. No one's coming to save you. I looked at myself, and yes, it was punitive. I said, stop being a bitch, buckle up. There's more to do. I needed to be an example for my niece and nephews in that moment. I needed to be strength for my brother, best I could. And I needed to pull it together quick, but I don't know what happened in that bank. Just an emotional
That set you
overload.
off.
But it was like the issue was where, I was having all these emotions and fears of, these people are going to judge me. They're going to think something's wrong. They're not going to, believe that it's mental health related.
Right.
And that's where I think my system just shut down. And I never experienced that. And that's honestly one of my worst fears, is drawing attention to myself, contrary to popular belief. In a negative way, I don't want to draw attention.
It sounds like you're experiencing the beginning stages where there's the freeze component of being overwhelmed, and your body is compensating. So it's the whole mind-body connection, right? Everyone's heard of that. So when we don't acknowledge mentally what we're going through, and we shut that door, we pretend it doesn't exist, it's going to leak out of your body. When people cry during a conversation, it seems weakness, right? And the person crying will be like, I don't know why I'm crying. I'm really angry. Yeah, your body is kicking in and releasing that anxiety. It's releasing those emotions through either shaking, through crying, and we could add to it and we'll start punching things.
Yeah.
We need that release. That punching, right? Throwing something is, you want that emotional release through a physical act.
Would you say it's like release of energy? Like, what's the
Release of energy, release of emotions, right? So we release our emotions through energy, and that energy, unfortunately, a lot of times it's going to be negative, where we destroy something. But I think that when we destroy something, we smash something, that's the thing that's pissing us off. We manifest everything, that bear, into that object, into that sheetrock.
Or a glass table.
Or glass table.
Or unfortunately ourselves, people that are cutters, that control of, I can cut myself, and am I going to feel something? I don't know.
I mean, my anger was bad. When I was in fight or flight, I was angry. I mean, like, angry. Like, I have never experienced such rage. And I don't know if it was postpartum rage or the rage that just came with my anxiety. I'm not sure. But I thought I was like the baby Hulk.
That's the primitive instinct that we all have to survive.
When you said rage or postpartum rage, is there a difference there?
There's postpartum anxiety, there's postpartum rage, there's postpartum depression, there's postpartum psychosis. You name it, there's a lot of that. And I'm zero expert at that. I just kind of lived through what I went through. But I can definitely feel like, I can't say that it was postpartum rage because I feel like I was already far out of that. If I were to have postpartum rage, because I wasn't so angry when she was little. It was more like, as my mind kind of slipped on me, I became angry because I was losing control of everything around me.
Right.
So I can't say that it was tied into postpartum. My postpartum was more postpartum anxiety, for sure. And I think that that anxiety manifested into my body as to where I lost all the weight, on top of a medication that was not correct for my body. So all of the three big things that were going on, it definitely was detrimental to me, for sure. But as to the rage, I was angry about a fucking shoe being in the wrong position. It was the stupidest thing.
Yeah, at that point, it's just continuous straws that break the camel's back.
Yeah, and there was no reason for me to be as angry and frustrated and on edge as I was. Because there was nothing that was seriously going on that I should have been that angry about.
Right.
It wouldn't take long for somebody else to say it, but like, let me say, like, wow, like how much I incredibly respect you for being able to go through that state, to know that you're looking at your children and you're looking at your family and like just not in a state of reality, to know that you like fought your way through that to get to where you are now, and to see, I've seen you interact with your children. Like, I see how they look at you, they love you and feel safe around you. And
I hope
like,
so.
yeah, that's, I respect the shit out of that. That's
And like,
amazing.
that was my biggest fear, I think, was when I was in my postpartum state. I was so afraid of fucking up my kid. Like, I was petrified of ruining her life because, you know, my mom struggled with postpartum as well, and it wasn't easy for her. And, you know, thank God I have her to kind of show me how hard she fought to get to where she is today. So to me, like, I get a lot of my strength from my mom. She never gave up, and she still is fighting to this day, you know. And for me, I wanted to be that pillar of light for my daughter. I didn't want her to see me struggle. I would like to have a conversation at some point in her life so she understands that life's not easy, and it doesn't matter where you are in your life, you can always get help. But like, I want her to understand that like, it wasn't her fault,
Right.
you know, because it wasn't. She had nothing to do with anything. It was just what was going on in my brain at that time.
Yeah.
Big shout out to our wives. Thank you.
Amen. Jess, what was your aha moment when you were going through these emotions? Because I feel as though, I could be wrong, but when people start feeling emotions, we're like, what is this? You know?
Yeah.
What was your aha to like, this is postpartum? And what could you offer to help viewers and people understand when to say, hey, this is what's going on, and here's how to get help?
I think, you know, obviously I'm no expert, but
You're qualified though.
yeah, for sure. I don't know. That's a hard one, because for me, it was when I was tying my underwear with elastic bands because of how much weight I lost. At that moment, it was like, what the fuck is going on with me? Like, what is happening? And you look around your life, you look around at your house, and you're like, everything's in disarray. Like, my whole entire life was in disarray, and I was like spinning out of control in it. And when I would wake up every morning, I would just hope for a bedtime at that time. You know, there was no purpose for me. The only purpose that I had was to get up and make sure my daughter survived the 24 hours that was in that day, you know? So that's when I was like, this is not right, because I'm not living. I'm just existing.
Right.
Bingo.
But that aha moment, even though you're looking to make sure your daughter's alive and okay, I would not minimize that, because that's a huge strength that you have. And you, somewhere in there was a part of you that was like, I got to fulfill my role as a parent,
Yeah.
as a caregiver, you know,
Yep.
as a loving mother. And that fought its way through. And whatever we have going for us, you know, we all have the commonality that we have children. We all have the commonality, you know, that we have a significant other in our lives.
But I mean, like, the poor guy, my poor husband, he suffered, you know, because I neglected him for the last 4.5 years because of, I was living in my own head, and I was trying to just raise our kid.
But the aha moment is when you start realizing the impact you have, not on just yourself,
But the people around me.
people around
Yeah.
you. And there's a lot of shame that comes with that.
Oh, I have a lot of shame. Well, I mean, I worked through that. I worked through a lot of it, but
Yeah, but it's acknowledging the shame. You know, just as we acknowledge the rage that we feel. And like I mentioned this earlier, but I think that we all have the commonality of anger and rage, because I believe that that's a primary instinct that we have, which is fight or flight.
and I've always been an angry person. I think, like, ever since I was a kid, like, I just feel like I had a little bit of a tinge of an anger issue, because like, if something didn't go my way, forget it. I would find a way to make it happen. And I did.
I can relate to that 100%. I mean, through my
So I
own
feel
journey.
like I just finally got a grasp on my anger at 35 years old.
Being blessed with alcoholism and substance use disorder, and being privileged enough to exist in a 12-step fellowship adjacent to that brutal diagnoses, I've learned that, you know, the chief activator for me with anger is self-centered fear. is fear that I'm not going to get my own way, or I'm not getting my own way, or
Oh, don't even come at me with fear. I'm riddled with it.
Well, my 7-year-old son, because of my attempts to kind of live out loud and be humble towards him and not be this like perfect authoritative parent that can't make any mistake, when I start losing my patience with him and my voice volume starts going up, he says, "What are you afraid of, Dad?"
Wow.
That's deep.
And he's able to stop me dead in my tracks, and I go,
Wow.
"Oh, I'm afraid I'm going to look like a bad parent because of how you're acting right now," and we go into playing mental Olympics with each
amazing.
other.
That's beautiful. You're going to raise a very emotionally intelligent human.
God, I hope so, because another big part of the reason I wanted to be involved in this project is what an opportunity I have to show people that are supposed to be presenting as professionals in all that they do, because they've been clean and sober for a period of time, or they've been working on their issues in therapy for a period of time, that they can't be struggling with depression and anxiety. I received my first legitimate diagnosis of generalized anxiety in the last 2 years of my life. I'm 40, 38 years old. I'm talking to a provider and being honest, and like, yeah, you're fucking anxious, man. Like, you got really bad, like what you're describing is like, the weight of an elephant's paw on your chest when you're waking up in the morning trying to get out of bed. Like, that's anxiety. I was physically encountering, and earlier the mind-body connection was discussed. I've had gut issues for the last 5 years. I've had my
gut and mental health go hand in hand.
So much. I had my gallbladder removed. I had, all types of issues that I'm not going to get into. But parallel to them is the most stressful periods of my life. High performing, running companies, running, my role in a household, and trying to grasp the next rung of the ladder and keep climbing, in the process. It's okay to sit here and say, like, I struggle too. And I hope that, my attempts to be authentic, can help people in my shoes that are, professionals, or, at whatever stage in their life they're society tells them they're in, that they can be flawed and they can break down and be broken too. I've been broken in the last couple of years at periods, and I can't, dually, I feel like I can't carry that out into the world and be real. And that just kept me hurting and kept me suffering longer than I needed to be hurting and suffering, so.
Yeah. I mean, for me as well, I feel like I suffered for so many years that like, I didn't want to live my life like that anymore. I just couldn't take it anymore. Like, I think I woke up one day and I was like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, I legit sat on the edge of my bed and I was like, what am I doing? What am I doing? My body is falling apart. Nothing fits me. I look like I'm the Walking Dead. And I am not an example of a good mom, or, well, not a good mom, but that's how I felt at that moment in time. So
I get in my head a lot about like, what am I modeling to my
children?
Like,
I'm just this person who's existing, and that's it. Like, I wake up, I get her ready, I drop her off, I go to work, I do my job, I come home, it's the same repetitive motions every single day that I was just stuck in. And I couldn't take it anymore.
When you were stuck in that routine and focusing on the steps to make the house perfect, to make your daughter's life perfect, your husband's life perfect, those aspects, before you get to the point where like, what the hell's going on with me? And before you get to that point of like, that epiphany of like, I got to do something about me because I can't take it anymore.
Yeah.
Before that point, when we're throwing ourselves into, I'm going to vacuum the house for the 4th time today. I'm going to go over the budget again. I'm going to.
Oh, I wasn't even in that position. I was like I was slipping bad. Like, everything was falling apart.
Listening to you talk about that is revealing like an affirmation for me. Like, I'm in the process of opening my 4th outpatient center, very similar to the ones that you attended. And I've done so more recently off of an understanding of like, they can't just be the same cookie cutter, same as the one down the street or same as the one in the town over. Like each one needs to have its own unique characteristics that speak to the fact that somebody in Jess's situation, somebody in Christian's situation, somebody in mine, we're not going to move out of that through the same processes and routines that got us into that, you know, and what I heard you talking about was that cookie cutter lifestyle. Like if somebody presented to you cookie cutter treatment, you know, of like a way out of that, there might be some familiarity in that, but you likely would have repelled from it, I'm guessing.
I mean, I had no idea what I was getting myself into when I entered in the mental facility that I went into. I had no idea.
But you were in a state where you were really willing to act. You were willing to roll up your sleeves and do some work, whether you realize it or not. I know that because you did it.
Yeah.
And you didn't sit before me a changed, transformed person.
Oh, yes.
If you just were met with, you're gonna vacuum the carpet for 4 times in the day, after each high traffic time, you're gonna do this, you're gonna do that, you would have been like, I'm all set. Like that just sounds like this life I just fucking broke down in, you know, like I'm all set. I need something different. So yeah, it just made me think of that. Yeah. Weird affirmation.
Yeah. I just, you know, entering the wellness center that I went to, I learned coping skills. I learned to deal with resentments that I've never dealt with because I harbored a lot of anger towards these people and, you know, certain situations that have happened to me, trauma that have occurred to me. I never dealt with anything. I never faced any enemies that I may have formed within myself. So like I broke down walls and tore down a lot of things. And like now I feel like normal for the first time in a very long time, but I don't know what normal is anymore. Like I don't know who I am at the moment. I don't know what I'm into at the moment. Yeah. But I'm down to the studs.
Still a process.
It's still a process. Yeah.
Coming into the new.
Exactly. And so I'm just trying to figure out who I am at the moment. Yeah. So it's kind of crazy to feel out of the fight or flight, freeze, fawn area and not knowing which direction to move forward into now.
Well, look, we're figuring that out together. We're not sitting here as professionals offering advice.
No.
We're
certainly not.
We're quite literally standing on the stage and saying, hey, like we're going through it.
Yeah.
Let's keep running. Jess, I got to take a second just to say, being with you at the center, what an honor it was to be a part of that journey and to see everything unfold.
Same goes to you too.
Thank you. But you came in at some of your darkest times. I won't share it. That's your personal. But to watch you kind of overcome it. Now, within that, I was humbled in many ways. Because look, as men, we don't know what women go through with pregnancy and childbirth. I learned from watching my own wife, childbirth, you women are quite literally Vikings. It's fucking mental. But the after effect. It's not just the cute little baby, and you know, it's what you women deal with is that postpartum, and you see it in the news. Unfortunately, it's a very real thing.
It is.
But seeing you open up the way you did, you quite literally, and this is what my draw was to you. You humbled me without knowing it.
Probably healed you in a lot of ways too. Like helped you heal. Or in your own healing process.
Jess, with her own story, her own struggles, and hearing everything, put a mirror in front of me with how I was handling business with my wife. So I was like, whoa, like they spoke similarly, but it's my wife. I'm used to the day-to-day. We've been together 15 years. It's not that I don't value what she says, but hearing it from another person, somebody who's a normal, you know, high-functioning, achieving woman, I'm like, oh, shit, I'm an asshole, you know.
And
seriously though,
that really speaks to the power of group therapy and the importance of
100%
connecting with your peers.
That's just it.
Group therapy was great.
Huge and very intimidating to walk into. But encourage anybody to do it. It's something that I couldn't imagine ever doing. But once I walked in, you realize
quickly. Was it what you imagined? Was it what you pictured? Either of you?
No.
I say that on the phone to people every day.
It's not like, you know, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest or any of these movies depicting mental hospitals or group therapies. It was such a breath of fresh air. And again, to meet like-minded people. Again, if I looked around the room, not casting judgment, I would have connected with like some of the other guys. Like, oh, you know, I'm probably gonna. Yeah. But then you of all people, like you walked in, I'm like, oh, like, you know, Jess, whatever. When you started talking, I'm like, shit, she just captivated me with her story. So
I went through a lot.
You did, and I'm happy you just said that out loud, because knowing you, at the beginning of that, I don't know that you would have admitted that you went through a lot.
No, I would have never admitted that, because I'm just a prideful person, and God forbid you say that you're in a bad way,
God forbid, right?
There was a day, and I think you might know where I'm going with this. I was in a bad way in group. I was dealing with some stuff on my phone. I should have had my phone in group therapy. I should have tapped in, but I was answering text, and there was some stuff going on, and I fell into a horrible thought process on some things, and I had bad intentions for when I left group.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Jess just picked up on it, and small in size, but mighty in
I
power.
yoked him. I grabbed him by his shirt.
She did. She came behind me and she grabbed me by the back. I was going to walk out the door. Like I said, bye to everybody. I put on the hat, Jeff, and I'm like, oh, we're good, And I'm walking out the door knowing I was going to do something bad. And she grabbed me by the back of my shirt. She's like, no, come over here. And she walked me right into the office, and she said, somebody get a facilitator with him or a counselor. He needs to talk. And I was like,
I could just sense it that day.
Wow.
I have a weird way of reading energies, I think. I don't know. I can just pick up when somebody's in a bad way, and I just could feel it that day. Like
I also do have a resting bitch face, so I did advertise it, I'm sure.
Yeah, but you could see it in your body language. You could sense it. Like, you are short. You're not usually that short with people. And if that quiet, you really weren't quiet.
Yeah.
I mean, you were quiet that day, and that was kind of like weird for him. So at the end of the day, I was just like, nah. I grabbed a facilitator. I said, someone needs to talk to him today, like right now.
And Jess quite literally saved my life with that. And that's, look, with kind of putting this team together, I don't even want to take credit for putting anything together, because this team fell together.
It fell together, yes, but
it needed to be acknowledged
of
like, here we go. At least, like, I'll take credit for, like, first introducing Jeff to Mahesh, and we had a sit down, we had breakfast, and then roping everyone together. And it fell into place, truthfully. This is what it's supposed to be. But, the biggest thing from where I sit that you bring to the table is what you were saying earlier, from that woman's perspective. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure there's a lot of women, and I hope men even pick up something off of this, similarly to what I did, of like, hey, like, shit, maybe I should be a little bit nicer to my wife. Maybe I should
listen to her, validate her.
I wouldn't go that far, but no, seriously, but like, especially women who just had children, like, there's such, I guess
you go through so much, like, not just mentally, but like physically as well. So like your body as you know it is no longer the body that you knew. So like mentally you're thinking like, oh my God, I never looked like that before. I never had that stretch mark there. I never, like, geez, I'm never going to fit into my jeans again. Like all these different thoughts that you have on top of keeping yourself alive, keeping this newborn child alive, and trying to run a household and work at the same time.
Absolutely.
It's like crazy to think that I still juggle all this, but now I know how to handle it a little bit better. But like thinking back to the way that I was handling it was crazy.
And it doesn't all feel like it's trying to kill you now.
Exactly. Right? Yeah. It kind of feels easy. Like, I got this. I figured it out.
And it's going to get easier, and you're going to figure out more and more. When we're on season 6, episode 6, I think we're going to have a revelation, and we're all going to kind of look back on this moment. I'm specific.
Yes, you are. That's how OCD.
I'm looking forward personally to season 4, episode 4 myself.
No, my man.
That's going to
might be a good one.
Groundbreaking.
I think we're all going to kind of look back, and what's cool is we're inviting the world to see. I mean, we might have 1,000 people see this. We might see it. I had a meeting with somebody originally from Finland the other day who seen this, and we had a discussion about incorporating her into the conversations. It's like the reach is far. So I love what you have to bring to the table to offer to men and women alike, to shine a light on that you're a normal person, you're functioning, and you're going to
semi-functioning.
But
it's going to turn to fully functioning.
Yes,
and they get to see that. We all get to see that.
Yeah. Let me pull this back to the journey that Jess went through of getting to the point of the fight. And it's a process, because when we first feel that anxiety of like, this isn't right, something's not right, I don't know what it is, but I'm feeling overwhelmed and I'm not feeling normal. So there's the denial stage. There's a phase, I get through this, I got to start focusing on other things. We avoid, right? And that is a version of flight. Not acknowledging, not paying attention to, ducking it.
I was very forgetful. I would forget everything.
That's your mind kicking in and saying, I don't want to deal with this right now, and I'll be forgetful.
Yep.
You know, that's your subconscious kicking into self-defense mode.
Okay, that makes sense.
You know, this is too overwhelming for me to deal with, and I'll be forgetful.
Yep.
You know, as well as I need to be this person to my daughter. I need to be this person to my spouse. I need to put all my attention into fixing other people's problems so I don't have to deal with mine.
Yep.
You know,
I did that great for a very long time.
in a way, that is the fawn.
Yep.
It's so when we talk about fawn, it's the response involved with accommodating others and seeking approval to avoid conflict that we're dealing with. We're avoiding the conflict, but we're doing it by, I need to be a better person this way, that way. You know, instead of dealing with the concrete issue of like,
This is what's really going on.
this is what's really going on. So those stages, you know, just to close that circle of defining the objective of this episode of fight or flight, we all go through that phase. Some of us get stuck in them longer. You know, some of us don't have those anchors of having children or a spouse or a partner that we depend on. A lot of people are alone.
That's a scary
getting back
place
what
to be.
Christian, what you were saying when you had that bear chasing you in that drive down to the Cape, there was the rush, I think. I call it a rush. I call it that charge of, I'm making a decision. I'm going to end my life. I'm in control. Nobody else is in control. Nobody else gets me. So it's that purposeful alienation of oneself from others and wallowing in your misery.
Yeah.
And there is a comfort in wallowing in your misery.
Absolutely.
It's all yours. No one touches.
Self-pity is a very comfortable feeling
yeah.
to anybody. You know,
Absolutely.
It's a pity party. And it's okay to have that, though. I don't mean to cut you off, but I'll speak on that because we were talking about this the other day.
Yeah.
You can have that pity party, throw it. Just don't stay in it too long.
The only thing I ever got from sitting on the pity pot is a purple ring around my ass.
Mahesh, you touched on something there. You breezed past it quick.
Where does this guy get this?
So when you were saying that, you know, not everybody has somebody, because I'm well aware that not everybody has beautiful children, beautiful spouse, whatever. What do you say to those people? What can we offer up to them? Because I'm sure at least one person watching this doesn't have something that's going to be their why that they can see necessarily.
I know a lot of them. I talk to them frequently.
It's deep,
So,
right?
you know,
I mean,
Mahesh
we're all
has to
individuals
say.
that struggle with it. And it's at some point, if you're going to exist, you got to ask yourself, do I want to be happy or not? It's a simple question. You know?
It's kind of, you know, unreasonable or fucked up even to expect somebody in that place to understand that just they matter, that just them existing and being alive from just a baseline that they matter. So that question, Mahesh, I like a lot because anytime I've been in the throes of my, you know, my darkness, of course I wanted to be happy. You know, that there's times I might have.
There's
thought
always
to
that little
myself,
light
deserve,
of I want to be happy.
Yeah, maybe I don't deserve to be happy, but like I want to eventually be happy. I don't want to exist forever miserable. No way.
Most people look at that like that's a no-brainer question. Yeah, of course I want to be happy. That's a deep question.
Yeah.
And okay, so there's that glimmer.
Because happy looks different to everybody.
Right. So
You're right.
So I equate happy with hope.
Okay.
If you don't have hope, that glimmer of hope that you just mentioned, that's that spark.
Yep.
In your darkest moment, you have to find that. There's that initiative, the work you have to dig in to be introspective, to identify that hope.
Yeah.
And that's the beginning of the fight.
I think that's a great way to put it. And I think that's so true because for me, like at some point I was like, I don't want to be here anymore. Like I had no fight left in me. I didn't necessarily want to take my own life, but I didn't want to exist.
Right.
But then I would think of my daughter and I'd be like, but then she wouldn't have me to be here.
Right.
Then I would be leaving behind somebody that I wanted so badly, something that I prayed for.
Right.
So that was my glimmer of hope. That was my aha moment. Like, no, she needs a mom that's going to be supportive, that's going to be able to take care of herself, that's going to be holding herself accountable in any which way that she needs to, just to make sure that she has a good example in her life. So for me, I think that was my push.
That was your road back.
That was my road back, yeah.
That was beautiful. Something you something you wanted so bad, something you prayed for.
And I was just giving up on it. And like, how could I give up on something that I created life?
Right.
Like I had to go through all of that. Yeah. I had to grow this human being in my body for, the 9.5 months that they're growing in you. But then not even that, I have to go through the pain to having that child.
Right.
And then going through that childbirth, thank God mine was like a cakewalk. It was easy. It was calm. It was a very good setting. So like I didn't have birth trauma like a lot of women do in this world. So that's something that's not spoken about either.
It's not spoken about, and it's a shame, right?
Yeah. And, then you have this baby and it doesn't come with a fucking encyclopedia.
Owner's manual.
Yeah, it doesn't come with an owner's manual.
Once you get home from the hospital and there's no nurses helping, you're like, oh shit, this is real.
Yeah. And the baby can't go to the nursery for a few hours so that you can get some sleep. You know, it's like, holy crap, what did we do? Like I remember sitting in our bedroom at like 4:00 in the morning and Jamie is just walking around with Mina like this in the room, walking back and forth. And I'm sitting on the edge of the bed and I'm in so much pain. This is like 4 days later. And I'm just like defeated. My boobs hurt. My body hurts. I feel like I don't even know what body I'm in because it does not look like mine.
Right.
And just us looking at each other like, what did we do? Is like, I'll just never forget that moment. And our dog, Layla, is just staring at us like, what did you guys do? But like going through all of that and then figuring out a system and making something work and then implementing and then the control took over. I needed to be in control of everything. And the postpartum anxiety kicked in. And then everything just kind of was a blur for so many years.
And nobody that hasn't gone through it understands it at the depth you're at. But even just parenting, even just bringing a child into the world with somebody else and
navigating that for the first time.
And everything that changes and like free time, forget about it. Like I'm lucky if I see my immediate family, let alone like friends and people just don't understand. My whole world
changed overnight. And like, you can prepare yourself for how many months you want to, but like
there's no way of
preparing yourself for that.
No, there's not. I've had conversations with, people who are gearing up to have kids, and I'm like, you sure you're ready for this? And
you're not saying that in a bad way.
No, I'm not.
But look, it's like your life does change. And
it does. And there's, like you said, there's no way to be ready for it. There's no, we're all parents. We all understand. I'm not going to explain it to you. But I remember having, so I have three nephews, 2 nieces. Mm-hmm. And I've always loved them like my own. Like I looked at them, especially like my oldest brother's first daughter, like she felt like mine, like this protectiveness there. And I've just grown to love all of them the same with that protectiveness. And I'm like, I'm going to be a great father. Once we got home with the kid and I'm like, oh shit. So like, I can't hand them back after I get them sugared up. Nope. I can't go buy them a ton of fun stuff that's going to piss my brothers and sister-in-laws off. It got real. So I asked people that question, are you ready for this? They're like, yeah, I'm good. I got nieces and nephews. And I'm like, oh my man, you're going to get fucking humbled.
Real quick.
Real quick. But it's a beautiful humble. I think you're doing a fantastic job.
Thank you.
And I hope, the moms are tapping in with this and you're giving them a voice and a platform to speak. And I hope they reach out if they don't know who else to reach out to. And you can help guide their tide.
Yep.
Yeah, let me tap into this. Just expanding on when you use the word humbled, because I want to expand on that. So we define that differently, right? I mean, not you and I, but I think generally people have a different perception of what being humbled is. So when you're talking about being humbled, of experiencing fatherhood or parenthood for the first time, it's the acknowledgement of like, I perceive it to be, I don't know what to do.
Correct.
Right? So acknowledging I'm lost and I'm scared. A lot of people struggle with the admission of being out of their comfort zone, being in a new world, being in a new role, being responsible for another life. It's overwhelming.
It's very overwhelming.
It should be overwhelming. And that, to me, that's a sign of a good parent. You better be scared, bro. It is absolutely terrifying to hold someone that small. A billion things can go wrong. And yeah, you're not going to sleep. Yeah, you're not going out with your boys. There is no you. There is us. And accepting that is a humbling process.
It is.
Right? So you have to redefine your character of who you thought you were because you're in this new realm, this new role. So getting this back to mental health, when you're struggling and these struggles are real, it's acknowledging that I am being set back because of these struggles I'm going through. I have to accept that. I have to humble myself, right? And eat humility for where I am. With that process of the fight, there's also the process of what was my role in creating the situation. Now, a lot of people are victims of circumstances, victims of violent homes, poor parenting, and we're still alive, we're still standing, right? And we can focus our anger and rage against how we were victimized, right?
Yeah.
But that alone is enough to accept as responsibility that I am blaming everything on this, and that's going to dictate how I'm acting currently as an adult. So I've got to process how I was victimized, process what happened to me, and decide who do I want to be.
Blaming is much easier than facing what you need to face.
Absolutely, right? Like we could blame fate. Say, I'm just not a lucky guy. A lot of people do that.
That's what I did.
Where does that fit
I just
into?
don't have any luck.
It fits into how are you going to handle that fight.
Is that a fight response, though, to blaming? Because I'm a huge blamer.
I think,
so I want to make note.
I mean, I feel that that's part of the process of after you acknowledge that I want to do something about this. If it wasn't for this guy, if it wasn't for my dad, if it wasn't for my mom or my sisters, I'd be in a better position. Okay, fine, done, box checked, right? And what? They're not here right now. What are you going to do? Or even if they are here, what are you going to do? They're not going to do it, especially if they were the cause of you feeling a certain way. Well, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
And that's a stage that we go through of finally accepting responsibility of like, well, how am I processing this? Well, I'm drinking a lot.
That's one thing I noticed about when I was in my postpartum era. I drank almost every single day after work. Like I wouldn't drink like crazy, but I would have a couple of seltzers. And for me, that's very out of the normal. But I was definitely trying to fill a void or cope with something somehow.
Hey, you're numbing those overwhelming emotions.
Yeah.
I'm jealous. I don't have that luxury or that privilege being a person in recovery. Like I can't indulge.
I didn't want to indulge. I just
but
couldn't.
Right.
Well, it was a crutch, that just presented itself. Yeah. And with me, like I need to have anxiety on a constant state around falling into a position where I might look at that as a crutch. That's like an option to me. And I'm embellishing. It's not like this, daily fight to stay away. But, it leaves an expectation that, well, hey, he's sober. So, he's going to be able to move through this gracefully. Not me. I don't move through a lot gracefully unless, I've learned some sort of lesson, and I don't learn lessons the easy way. I learn them the hard way. So, one thing I wanted to be sure to say on the topic of fight or flight, it's like I find myself getting way more wrecked by my my flight response or freezing or fawning even. Like when I don't fight things, when I just hide or cover up, bury my head in the sand, that causes the biggest the biggest destruction in my life. It could be in my professional life, avoiding some sort of problem, and then next thing you know, I'm burnt out, and or ignoring something at home, and then that grows legs, and it's like I come home from a hard day at war, hunting and gathering, and come home and there's no peace in my home, and having to realize that like I created that reality for myself, not
Right.
But I don't at first. I love to blame, and
Sure.
Because blaming's easier.
It's
Assess,
easy.
blame, move
Every
on.
time you point a finger, there's 3 pointing back at you, though. So what a lesson in humility. Each time I tried to blame something, it's like, no, that's not what's going on, stupid. It's your own self-centered fear or your own ego or your own pursuit of
Well,
what,
our
what we
egos,
want.
our
you know?
egos are
Yep.
the driving factor of what causes all of our issues. I feel like we create a lot of our own issues within our own
Absolutely.
head.
Absolutely, we create our own issues. I mean, I was saying this earlier, the first time we got together and talking about how our perception is that we're the center of the universe. Everyone's looking at us, everyone's judging us. They're not.
Yeah.
Not to the extent that we think they are.
Yeah.
I'm a failure in my father's eyes. I'm not a doctor. Oh, okay. No, he's not thinking about that. I'm thinking about that. I'm thinking he's thinking that.
Yeah.
And then you get to a point where you do acknowledge that, yeah, I created this, but that can dangerously turn to self-loathing.
Yeah.
And that self-loathing, that's slippery hill. Oh my God, bro.
Yeah.
You start
Self-loathing.
getting that, it's still avoiding the fight. It's still avoiding it's avoiding the key issues that started on you on that path. I'm too busy self-loathing. I hate myself so much. Like, dude, are you gonna get a job? No, I gotta stay in my bedroom in the dark and hate myself. Yeah, but when are you gonna get a job? Wait a second, I haven't finished yet. Like, all right,
Where's the
It's the runaround. It's the runaround.
I got to jump in on that. That's from a professional standpoint, and I'm sure personal as well, but from an unprofessional standpoint, because I felt a little attacked. But no, seriously, that self-loathing, I feel like that's okay, like anything in moderation. That
That can drive some people sometimes.
For me, it did. When I hit all these rock bottoms, I remember I looked in the mirror and I said, "All right, motherfucker, I'm going to destroy you."
Yes.
Before I didn't like how I looked, before I lost the weight, how I acted, the decisions I was making, the people I was hanging out with, the shit I was doing, my morals, my values were just all over the fucking place.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm going to cook you and I'm going to rebuild something that you can't interfere with again. That whole, what you were just going over, what we create. So my sister-in-law, who's been, you know who I'm talking about. I won't say her name, but,
Lower, yeah.
she, sweetheart, but, she was probably the most stable thing I had growing up through childhood. So I always valued what she said. To be quite honest, to this day, she's the only fucking person that I'm scared of.
He should be.
Well, her and my youngest daughter. But, she said, she called me the fuck out my name one time. And she said, look, you're a self-fulfilling prophet. You burn it down. When you don't like a situation, you walk away and you throw the match. You light it up. And I took that to heart. I don't know if she realized that, but I really did. And it impacted me in a major way. At first, it was in that self-loathing, like, yeah, I just fuck everything up. I'm going to fuck this up, too. And I'd start to get into things, and I'd get anxiety. Say my wife and I were going to Greece. That's where we got engaged. I had anxiety the whole fucking time. I didn't enjoy the trip until I got home. You know what I mean? Because I was convinced I was going to fuck it up somehow. Couldn't live in the moment because things always got fucked up when I was a kid, or like things got canceled last minute. There was some sort of whatever.
You're already always assuming that something bad is going to happen.
I would destroy it before anything else could.
Yep.
Hell yeah.
But I recognize that, and I'm very cautious of that. So when you were saying that, I'm like, I got to jump in on that topic.
I need to do better at that.
Look, and you can. I mean, it's the work you've put in. I see things that maybe you can't. I think they see things that maybe I can't, you can't.
Yeah.
you've overcome some huge hurdles. You're
Yeah,
gonna
and I
overcome
forget
too.
that. So for me right now, I'm like stuck in like limbo.
How do you?
Freeze.
Freeze. Maybe I'm stuck in freeze right now. Yeah. What do you mean by limbo?
Yeah.
Like I said before, like I tore down all these walls. I went through all that stuff, and I feel like I've shedded so many skins, so many different lives, and I'm just kind of stuck in freeze mode. Like I don't know where to start. I don't know where to turn. I don't know where to.
You don't know what your identity is?
Yeah, I have no idea who I am. I have no idea who I am right now.
I say that right now because I'm relating to what you're saying. And in the last couple of weeks, I've said that to a professional. Like
I said it to my therapist on
like
Tuesday, on Wednesday. I was
know,
like, I don't know who I am.
and I don't know who I'm supposed to be.
Me neither.
Right now. You know, but outside of a partner and a father, like those roles are easy. And
Yeah, but I don't even feel like I can, like the mom role I got, but like the wife role I'm struggling in right now too. So like, I just feel like I am stuck.
But you want to be the best.
Of course I do. And I was the best at some point, and I just kind of fell off because of my own issues.
You're gonna get back there.
Yeah.
It's funny listening to you account, you know, your tale of kind of hitting your own bottom and rising out of it after living in it for a while. I gotta say, I have kind of like a paradoxical experience personally. Like I was sober long-term and recovered long-term and, you know, firing on all cylinders. And my son was born, and through circumstance, you know, I ended up full custody of this little guy. And shout out to my sister-in-law. We were away. He was like 2 years old at this point, and we were away on like a family trip up to New Hampshire, just all staying together. And we were out at dinner, and she pulls me aside and says, "Jeff, you know, I've been watching you with your son the last couple of days. I got to tell you, when your brother and I found out you were going to be a father, we were concerned. we were a little concerned. And having the opportunity to watch you these last couple of years and to see you personally on this trip, we just got to say, like, what a wonderful father you are, and how proud I am of. And this is a woman that works for, you know, the DA. She's like a very critical and righteously judgmental person is how I like to put it. And I gave her nothing but reasons to judge my ass, you know, since the day she met me.
Because you couldn't take a compliment.
Well, that's what you're witnessing now. You know, I still can't to this day. But
do you not think that you're a good dad?
Having that responsibility straddled on me, no, I feel like it's the one identity I kind of deserve and have earned, you know, out of a lot of them.
Because you do a great job.
Thank you. And it comes from the same, it's born from the same place that me viewing you being a good mother and parent, like it developed as almost a survival instinct. Like I needed that relationship and that dependence on me to make it through that period of my life. Because if I didn't have it, I think I would have just kind of spun out and, you know, I don't know where I would have gone. But having the responsibility of being a parent, God, it's like, I wish, you know, like I would never recommend to get yourself out of a jam, have a kid, but like the power, you know, that children and parenting, if you take it seriously, can have on you. It's been the most transformative thing in my life. I
mean, yeah, it made me want to transform my whole being because I wanted her to have more. I wanted her to have the best.
I find it interesting is that I'm hoping most parents that are watching this can connect to this. But when we are with our child, we are our most vulnerable because we don't have any safeguards in place for fear of judgment. Mm-hmm. And you have this little baby in front of you.
Little sponge.
Yeah, that's completely dependent on you, 100% dependent on you taking care of them. And as much as we put into our abilities as parents to raise that child, what we get out of that ability to care for and to love is immeasurable. Because the validation you're getting from your son and you're getting from your daughter and your kids, my kids, like I'm reminded that I am valued, right? And I look in my kids' eyes, and they're adults now, and I'm getting all choked up. It's a beautiful feeling because it's pure, right? So when we're with our siblings, parents, coworkers, friends, and we get accolades and we get, hey man, you're doing a great job. Right? It's not the same. That purity isn't there, and I don't know. I think we view it differently, so that drive to want to be there for our kids makes us want to get out of our darkness.
Yeah.
And
that's what drove me. Yeah.
And that's where some of us are lucky enough to identify that we have something to live for, that we must live for, we're obligated to live for, because of the damage it would do if we weren't around, And for those who could figure that out, you're lucky.
Yeah.
A lot of people struggling, and they're like, well, I don't have anything to live for. Yeah, you do.
Yourself.
Yeah, but when you're alone, it's hard to
see that
and accept that because of the wallowing and the self-pity, that you believe that you're not worth it after a while. And those people in that dark spot, I don't know what the answer is, but I know that what they need to work towards is diving deep inside and finding the reason of why I need to see tomorrow. Because
why you matter.
Why do you matter? So it's identifying that, and it's identifying that hope. You've got to find that hope. Nobody else is going to find that hope for you.
No one's coming to save you.
So I love that I had asked you that question, and as you're answering, I realized I had the answer to that on what to offer people, because I was in that damn spot. Didn't hit me till just now. Because look, I lost my mom young. Both my brothers were already married. They had kids. So even just that within the loss of my mom, like I felt like I was on my own with it.
Yep.
I was tangled up in the court system at that time. I had to go live with my father, who I didn't really know, because he has his own mental health issues. Since I've reconciled and have a great relationship. But, at that point, he worked at a funeral home. It's the last place you want to be around when you're trying to grieve something like that. And I remember, that first Christmas, and the point I'm bringing this up is for the people that don't have something to look forward to. That first Christmas, my dad didn't even get a tree. As a 16-year-old kid, I mean, you think you're Billy Badass. You think you know it all. You don't. Looking back at it now, if a 16-year-old kid was in here, oh my God, it's baby, right? Even to you, I'm 30 and I'm probably a baby to you, Mahesh.
Yeah, you are.
But, and I understand and accept my positions at every step of life now. But so it was very cold. It was very dark. I was dating my now wife. We'd been together since we were 15. We were on and off a couple times, late teenage years, of course. And look, her family didn't like me because I gave them every fucking reason not to, because I was a victim of youthful indiscretions. I was a little punk ass.
That's a good way to put it.
I was a punk ass. That's the real way to put it. And I remember I went, because we were going to hang out, we were going to meet up, and I just sit at the bottom of their driveway. Probably good, because her dad probably would have come out and killed me, but there was nobody for me. So that little kid had nobody. And that was such a broken feeling, and I hope that resonates with somebody, whether you're 16 or 60. I dug deep within me, and I imagined the life that I wanted. I imagined the two daughters I have, I imagined them. The wife, obviously, that came to fruition. And I just did everything I could. I hoped, I prayed, I tried to take all the steps to get there. And once you get there, I can't explain the feeling, but keep pushing through, find your hope. It's there.
I'm definitely going to keep coming back to the you matter piece, because asking yourself the question, do I want to be happy in life? And answering that question, yes, led you to a place where you could imagine, okay, what does happiness look like for me down the road? What am I pursuing? And then seeing people and through, groups or community, fellowships or whatever, when you start to expose yourself and your stuff to other people and hear about them and their healing journeys, you start to learn why you matter. you start to learn the power you have in perception, the power you have in like the world is either absolutely the most beautiful place you've ever seen and has these just majestic waterfalls and parks and nature and beauty and awe, or it's also the worst
Gotham City,
death torn, destruction torn, dead babies happening in parts of the world. Like it's what you focus on and lock in on, and the power of our perceptions, the power of our minds. If we lock on to our dreams and our hopes and our goals, then we can realize why we matter. We're fucking powerful. We're powerful beings with amazing abilities to manifest and create
and rebuild ourselves.
Unbelievable lives and roles in our lives that just don't make any sense the longer you live in them.
And it's allowing yourself to follow up on what you said, allowing yourself to be vulnerable. And I think anyone can be vulnerable, whether it's a mom who's trying to navigate being a parent and a wife and, work and all that, or it's the alpha male or the not alpha male. I feel like everyone can open up that vulnerable side and put yourself into situations where you can find value within yourself. I mean, I'm a big, as you know, personally, putting myself into rooms I have no fucking business being in, sitting at tables that I don't know why I'm sitting at, and just having conversations. And if you allow yourself to be vulnerable like that, you'll find value within yourself pretty quick. And it might be validation through other people, which isn't necessarily a great thing, but you'll see it.
Yeah.
Well, that's like when you meet people randomly that you don't expect to meet, and then like somehow it's tied into something that you are passionate about. Like this morning at dance.
Thank you.
I showed up to go pick up Mina, sat down on the velvet blue couch that they have, and I sat next to somebody, and I was just like, oh, how are you? Good morning. And she's like, good morning. I see this mom, every Saturday. And I just looked at her. I'm like, oh, you working today? She's like, yeah, I'm working. And I'm like, oh, what do you do for work? Just trying to keep the conversation going. Yeah. And she's like, oh, I work for the suicide prevention hotline. And I was just like, wow. I think that's what it is. I could be butchering that, but she works for like the corporate of it.
Yeah,
she's involved in that.
I'm trying to think of what the.
Yeah. It's 988.
Yeah. That's the number.
And I was just flabbergasted because I'm like, no way. I'm like, thank you so much for doing what you do, because that is so underrated. And she's like, thank you, and I'm just like, actually, we're about to film a podcast on mental health today. And she was like, I would love to, be a guest, or I would love to, listen to it.
That would be awesome. Yeah.
And she has a license. I forget what she said. She said it really fast, and I have the worst memory. So
kind of lettuce smashed together. I'm sure.
That was it.
Probably not a bad opportunity to segue into like, if you're watching this show and you're identifying and relating to us, but you don't know what to do now. There's a lot you can do. If you're in crisis, you should 100% call 988 on your mobile device and talk to a trained, crisis triage person. It's gotta be a conversation, and no one's coming to save you, but like no one's coming to start the conversation for you either. I think there's something to be said about spouses stepping in and helping, parents stepping in to help.
I mean, my mom and my dad, and, through what I went through, this past May, they stepped in, they took over. I mean, I was so grateful that somebody was taking care of me.
Yes.
Like I surrendered. Once I surrendered, everything changed. Once I said, hey, listen, I'm not okay. I'm not well. I need help. And I don't know where to start.
Man, what a relief off of you.
Oh my God, you have no idea.
Realize that, I see that in my sessions with my clients. And at the school I work in, I've seen it when I was a probation officer, the admission of, I don't know what I'm doing.
Well, when I had to...
Everyone already fucking knows you're struggling. Everyone in your life already knows you're an absolute train.
It's kind of clear.
Yeah. And everybody didn't want to say anything.
Right.
Everybody was just hush-hush about it.
Oh,
but
totally ignoring the elephant in the room. Absolutely.
Yeah. But I mean, my mom wasn't really ignoring it. She was the one that, like, I had to surrender severely to her, because I remember being at work, went to New York for my brother-in-law's wedding, and I was so anxious about the whole situation the whole entire time, traveling with Mina, taking her to New York City, all these different things that could happen, and it's new territory and all this crazy stuff that was going on in my head that I didn't eat. But the Wellbutrin that I was on also didn't help either. So I get back, I come to work on Monday morning, and I'm severely shaking, and I can't stop vomiting. And I'm like, maybe I got the stomach bug. But then, like, my whole body is convulsing, like you said, that happened to you.
Yeah.
And I remember texting my mom and being like, I don't know what's wrong with me, but I am not okay.
Yeah.
And that text, that was it. Once I opened up that gate with my mom, she wasn't going to let it go. So I know, like, surrendering to my mom and saying, like, hey, listen, I'm not all right, that was it. Now I have to hold myself accountable.
Yes. Now there's no going back.
Now there's no going back.
Because you verbalized it.
Yeah.
How many people out there right now are in this family situation when they pull into their driveway and you got to take that deep breath of...
Who isn't in that?
Right?
With anybody with children under 15.
Come on, man.
How many times do I text you and I say, let's pray that Mina's in a good mood today because I have had myself a day?
Absolutely. So when we've had a horrific day and we have to click into mom and dad mode, because you do.
You really do.
And you have to step it up, get in there, and make sure homework is done, dinner's on the table, everything's going the way it should, because of the role we're in. And a lot of times we might throw ourselves into a role to avoid our personal struggles, right? So, you know, there is a dance, there's a balance, you know, but there's also those people that pull into the driveway. I'm like, what drama am I going to walk into?
Exactly.
With my sister that's depressed, or with my father that's the alcoholic, or my mom that's like not getting out of bed due to her depression.
Talk about an opportunity for fight or flight.
Absolutely. And that's that sitting in the driveway and that you're making that decision.
Yep.
You know,
Am I going to go to the store for milk and never come back?
Get in and get out.
I'm going to go in and, you know, fight this head on.
Yeah. You know, and those silent dinners, if they're at the table together, pretending nothing's going on, you know, shoving that food down your throat as quickly as possible so you can get up and get the hell out of there, you know, or going to your bedroom, shutting the door, and just like looking at TikTok at the age of 15 and pretending anything outside of the door isn't happening. You know, living in isolation because someone is afraid to say, I need help, or fearing that if we offer help, it's going to be shot down. That fear
Fear of judgment.
That fear of judgment, that fear of like, no, that's not going to go well,
Okay.
Well,
is holding so many people hostage. And, you know, they live in that for years and years and years. The lucky ones...
Fear of judgment is a serious one.
Absolutely, but the lucky ones are able to have that event that brings it to light. Somebody says, because they got arrested or because they fell on the floor, collapsed, I need help. You know, it doesn't have to get to that stage, but the reality is, for a lot of people,
At some point, it's
it
going
does
to
have
get
that stage.
that. Yeah.
You know, and for those people who are watching that are in that stage of finally admitting to themselves, I do need help. If they could dig in and express that to whomever they identify as a safe person, that's going to change your life. That is the beginning. That's the spark of the fight. So the fight's not easy. The fight isn't overnight. It's not a sitcom where it's the problem solved in a half an hour with commercial breaks, you know?
Yep.
But it is a road. It is a path. And on that path, you're going to start eventually, hopefully, identifying goals of who you want to be, give you some structure and parameters of what you need to work towards.
What your dreams are.
Right, but without
What your
that,
goals are.
right? You're just floating in this
Rudderless.
void of misery of not having direction. So if you're strong enough to accept the help when somebody confronts you, or to say to somebody, I need help, if that first step is taken, the rest of your life will become easier, because now you're acknowledging, minimally you're acknowledging that you're hurting, instead of
I have to
living in the
admit-
fawn stage, or living in the flight stage of pretending that you're not suffering.
I have to admit that breath of fresh air or that elephant trunk foot was lifted off of my chest. Once I surrendered and asked for help, I felt like a whole different person, like I could breathe. Like I didn't know what it was going to look like because I didn't know what my options were at that time.
Yep.
I didn't go to the doctors yet. So that was like day one of my mental crisis. Like there was a full week before I agreed to get out of work. Like I was so like, no, I'm going to be fine. I'm going to be fine. I can do this on my own. I don't need to go to a clinic.
I call that a negotiated surrender.
Yeah.
You know, like there's terms to it, you know?
Yeah. But like that week leading up to finally going to the doctors and them being like, okay, like there's options that are not inpatient. There's options that you can go down and you can go and check out these facilities, whatever it may be.
Right.
And I didn't know at that moment in time that there was an outpatient option. So going to the facility, doing my intake, kind of meeting everybody and then just saying, fuck it, I got to try it.
It's very private too. Like people don't realize like no one's going to like see you. Like your neighbor's not going to know you're going to an outpatient clinic. Like you show up just like you do to go to therapy. Like you
I just showed up like I did to go to work. I treated it like school.
You go into a building and like nobody knows what you're doing in there.
Yeah. Like I told myself that I was going to treat the program that I was in as school. I was like, I'm going to take this as serious as I can because this is my one shot. If I don't make it through this with a clearer head, I'm in big trouble. Like maybe I'm not supposed to be here. That's kind of like what it was, either do or die at that moment in time for me.
Right.
So I had no option but to move through it and feel it.
Go through it and grow through it.
Yeah.
Now, Mahesh, everything that you just kind of prompted there in that conversation, that shirt that you're wearing, what's it say in the back?
Face your terrors.
Face your terrors. What's it say on the bottom? No battles won in bed.
Yes.
So that's something that's an initiative I'm creating, an army I'm hoping to band together of people to adopt that same mentality that I adopted. Everything that just transpired right here is quite literally the reason I formed that. That's the fight or flight.
Right.
It's face your terrors. Sometimes you can't, and that's okay. Sometimes you can't do it alone, and that's also okay. But you still got to face them. You can't run from them. No battles won in bed. That's what you were saying, jumping in bed, getting on TikTok. When I went through my depressive phase, I actually don't remember this, and my memory is superior. I remember shit that I shouldn't. But that stems from trauma. Now, my wife informed me that I was in bed for a week. That's so unlike me. I'm a fucking busybody. Even when I'm sick, like I gotta be doing something. And that's where that kind of came into play. Wasn't like, hey, this sounds cool. I'm going to throw it on a t-shirt and sell it to some people. No. It's something that got me to the next phase of my life that's going to take me much further. I love that this team right here, without knowing it, you guys have already adopted that fucking saying, and I love that you're wearing it.
We embody the mantra. And it is a mantra. Mantras are powerful.
It is. Yeah. And I never thought...
what makes them powerful? The echo chambers of our minds. Feed something good to my brain, and it's rocket fuel. It's, it can move me. Face your terrors. That's quite the mantra.
And, Mahesh, you putting together this episode, this kind of curriculum for today, I never really tied it to the whole face your terrors until you were just talking there, and that made sense. And look, I mean, when I decided to put that on t-shirts, like, it's not like, I want to make money. This is cool. There's a lot of, you see that stuff on TikTok and Instagram, and I followed it. I bought into some of the shirts, This is more like, everybody sitting at this table and everybody watching either is or is about to become a goddamn warrior of their own lives. And I just want to be able to put that all together and, people slip that shirt on and be like, I'm fucking part of something. I'm part of a band of people that got to the other side, or they're getting to the other side.
And they will get to the other side. They just have to do it.
It's a powerful thing because as individuals, we have our own reasons and motivations to face our terrors. And that's your own journey. That's true. But the commonality is understanding that, accepting that we all face our terrors at different levels, and there's no shame in that. And I mentioned judgment I've mentioned judgment at several points, as we all have, because that is one of the terrors. That's the biggest thing, as well as shame. And these are two constructs. And I could keep going back to that. We create and we amplify and we give volume to, we give voice to judgment and shame, way past what they deserve. You know, we should feel shame and take accountability for when we screw up. Yes. Okay, acknowledge it. What are you going to do about it? Fix it. Own it and fix it and move forward, right? Because by moving forward, that's the only time you're going to be able to address that shame is by your future actions, not by wallowing in it. It's easy to wallow in it. It's easy to feel self-pity. It's easy to self-denigrate yourself, you know, like, and say, oh, yeah, I'm a horrible person. What are you going to do? You know who I am. I'm a bad guy. Oh,
Yeah, sure.
Look at the circumstances of my life. Oh, I'm such a loser. Oh,
It's easy to stay in that state.
right.
My mother, rest her soul, used to always say, if you have 1 foot in yesterday and 1 foot in tomorrow, you're pissing all over today.
It makes sense.
The only time you can act is in the present, you know, and you can't.
Well, we only have 24 hours. We don't have yesterday and we don't have tomorrow.
Right.
So why are we sitting? I should be taking my own advice right now. Why are we sitting
I'll hold
in?
you accountable.
I know you will. Why are we sitting in our self-pity?
Yeah.
Why are we wasting our time?
There's value in reflection on yesterday,
Of course.
you know, to motivate us. But if it doesn't motivate us to create action, reflection means nothing,
Yeah.
you know?
It's that moderation piece you spoke of.
Well, I was literally about to fly absolute in on that before we switched gears on that. It is because, in my opinion, from what I've learned, is that there's depressed feelings in yesterday, there's anxiety in tomorrow. You know, but you also can't completely neglect your past, and you have to look ahead, especially with kids. And I mean, I don't care actually. You can be in a jail cell or you can be a CEO. You need to be looking at the next step,
Yeah.
but you can't worry about it too much.
No, but I think it's important to deal with your past.
Oh shit, yeah, you can't.
You can't move forward without dealing with your past.
Right.
100%.
That's one thing I learned in that recovery center is, or wellness center. You have to work on your past relationships with yourself.
Yeah.
Like writing letters to myself when I was 15,
Yep.
17, 21, 24, 25. All these big significant years that something traumatic happened to me, I had to write myself a letter and be like, you are not who you were when you were that. When you were not that. What am I trying to say? You are not who you are without being who you were.
Wow. Yep.
That's what I was trying to say.
Scars are important.
Yeah, and we have to wear them proudly
Yeah.
as much as they hurt and they suck to look at, but we have to work through them to be able to move through life.
You guys mentioned at different points as well about darkness. That one person's darkness can be somebody else's light. And yeah, that's very powerful and very true. But we also have to learn to embrace our darkness.
Yeah.
You have to accept your darkness. I brought this up years ago with my wife, talking about my own ideas of having a podcast in the future, like reaching out to people. And she's like, what are you talking about? Embracing your darkness. That sounds like bad.
Like Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne, Batman.
It's heavy metal.
Psychopath. But yeah, you have to accept your darkness.
I love it. I love darkness now. Now that I know how to navigate darkness,
Right.
I almost, in a weird, fucked up way, look forward to going to a dark time because I grow in the darkness.
Yes.
I reemerge a whole different motherfucker every time.
How do you use that darkness as fuel?
It is.
And that's what I've had to use, with my own baggage of history, getting to where I am. I used anger. I used rage. I was just very, very, very angry.
Did you
Growing
flip
up.
a glass table?
I did not bring a glass table. I've broken a lot of things, including my knuckles, over time. And, after getting past that self-pity, I was looking at myself like, what do you got? And asking myself that question, has led me to be, I think, a good dad, a good husband. 2 master's degrees later, I hated school.
I hated school too,
I hated school because I felt the label of like not being a good student and not believing my potential. And then I get to do, so while I'm taking these different programs to get my different masters, I got one in criminal justice and I got one in counseling. And the one, when I was doing the counseling one, I was close to 50 and I was reinventing myself. And I was reinventing myself because I hated my job, being a dean, at a high school. And I hated it because of the confines and the structures that I had to work through with my ultimate goal of like connecting with kids. And I felt that, I'm the hammer as the dean, and that's preventing me from doing the right thing. And I would have to suspend kids knowing that that wasn't the answer, but I had to work within the confines of that. And I realized, you know what? I think being a counselor would be more effective. So, okay, you acknowledge that. But what are you going to do about it? In my late 40s, really? I want to go back to school? Yeah. Right? Because I was just not happy, not fulfilled, and angry of like having to come to work, and having to do an assembly or doing lunch duty. Seriously, bro? An hour and a half of just standing there pushing a garbage can around?
Yeah.
No.
Wasn't for you.
It was not for me. So
education's super cool because like I don't know, I look at my fiance as just like such a badass. I've watched her enroll and now complete a yoga certification class to the extent where she came home last night from running a class with about a dozen people in it and nailed it. And just in the process, she just assumed the role of like, I'm going to be like a badass yoga bitch and I'm going to do this. And like, what a powerful thing. Like back to the you matter, like when you decide and you lock on, like you can do anything you want and be anything you want.
It's creating that action plan, it's creating the goals and, not letting anything stop you. So yeah, we feel rage, we feel anger, but if you use it as fuel instead of self-pity, all right, great. That's productive, right? Mm-hmm. And we benefit in the end. And we become more self-reliant. If we can get to a stage where we're self-reliant and start feeling good about ourselves and accomplishing things that we set out to do, that addresses our mental health.
I don't think I effectively accomplished that at any point in my life until I was like in my mid-30s. That's like a relatively new state of being for me,
Yeah, but in your 20s and like talking like an old man, you're still developing.
Right.
Teenage years, man, like they're just embryonic. You're like figuring out just how to exist. You're like, which group should I hang out with? Who am I going to be? And I work with students all day long, and I have kids absolutely freaking out if they're taking 6 or 7 AP classes and they have the vision that I have to get to Harvard. And if I don't get to Harvard, life is over. And I've had kids hospitalized because of their depression due to the fact that they feel they are not enough. I'm like, oh my God, you're in 10th grade. Stop talking about college. Like, if
they're thinking too far, yeah.
They're taking it too far. They have to have the answers of who they are and who they should be at 15, 16. And that's so unrealistic.
Because they're living in fight or flight.
Yes. Right? And they're falling for the BS that they're hearing that you should know at this age. Well, who set that up? Who decided that?
Shit, I still don't know who I am at 35 years old.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking forward to evolving and creating new things and doing more things. There's so many things I still want to do, and accomplish, because I want to. Yeah. These are my goals. Mm-hmm. And being comfortable in saying that and establishing new goals and, looking down the road and saying, okay, what do I need to do to get there? Mm-hmm. And being comfortable in doing that, that's a nice place to be.
Yeah.
But, I'm 57. It took me this long to get here,
Now, are you happy with where you are?
I'm ecstatic at where I am. I am.
Well, good job because you did it for yourself.
It took a while to get here,
But you did it.
you know, and I'm lucky enough to have the people in my corner, my kids, my wife, and yeah, I have gratitude for that,
Gratitude is so important.
isn't it?
Every single day, you should wake up in the morning and say 3 things that you're grateful for. Whether it's you had a good night's sleep, you woke up and you actually woke up to a new day, or anything that you could be grateful for.
At the end of the day, if we go over how hard the day was, right? I try to remind myself of the privileges that I have.
Mm-hmm.
Here I am whining in my cute little Cape house in North Weymouth. You know, I've got my wife by my side. I've got a fire going. You know, had a decent meal. Yeah, I am grateful.
Yep.
You know,
You have to grasp onto things that you wouldn't normally think that to be grateful for,
right?
you know?
But you got to ground yourself and be realistic, because when you do that, I think it turns the volume down on the things that we're upset about. Because if we don't, I think we give volume to those things. As simple as I was at a staff meeting today, and you know, I didn't feel heard, you know, about my opinions. Okay, you know, go back to work tomorrow and try again. Calm down. You know.
I did want to touch base back into isolation because I feel like isolation is such an important part. Because during COVID is when I was pregnant.
Oh.
So
whammy.
I found out I was pregnant in January of 2020. World shut down March of 2020. And like even every doctor's appointment, I had to go by myself. Like Jamie could never come to an ultrasound. Anything related to like a baby shower, we had a drive-by baby shower. Like it was devastating. And having to isolate myself, which I was never somebody that liked to be alone. I always liked to be around people. Like me and my husband's door was a revolving door. Constantly somebody coming in, one of our friends, one of our family members, just somebody. Sure. We always had people at the house.
What a nasty occurrence that
Yeah.
period of life
And
was.
then mix that in with some postpartum.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
So, you know, going through the isolation of COVID and then bringing new life into this world, holy shit.
Yeah.
The level of fear that I was under was insane. So, like, just bringing that back to the isolation, I feel like it started back in COVID.
Yep.
Like, my fight or flight situation definitely started.
Just compounded.
Yes, that's a good way to put it.
Right?
Compounded, yeah.
Right. Well, listen, we covered a lot of ground today around defining what fight and flight is and the different aspects and different levels that people go through in addressing their issues. But I think we focused on the fact that at some point, somewhere, somehow, you need to decide, am I worth it to move forward? And hopefully the answer is yes. And it's easier said than done. I understand that. But I'm encouraging everyone to do a deep dive inside themselves and find that spark. You should fight for yourself. You should fight to move forward. And that's our objective here.
Yep.
You know, and I really appreciate everybody's input. I appreciate the time and your views, and for sharing your experiences. So thank you very much. So I look forward to seeing everybody for our second episode. See you soon. Thank you.